Forgotten Genocide, the Armenian Tragedy of 1915. The Ottoman Empire ruled over most of the Middle East and Eastern Europe for hundreds of years. They controlled lands from North Africa all the way to the edges of modern Turkey. By the late 1800s, Western powers started taking. The Russian army began pushing into Ottoman territory. Many ethnic minorities lived within the empire, including the Armenians. They had their own language and culture, but were still second-class citizens to the ruling Turks. The Ottomans viewed them as a potential threat and started arresting Armenian intellectuals and leaders. This caused outrage among the general populace. When the Russians got close, it seemed like the end was near for the Ottomans, so the government decided to take desperate measures. On April 24th, 1915, Ottoman soldiers began rounding up Armenian men, women, and children in the city of Constantinople. They were told that they were being relocated for their own safety. In reality, they were being marched into the deserts of Syria, where no one could find them. Over the next 4 years, 1.5 million Armenians were killed by the Ottoman army. It's hard to believe, but this was actually the second genocide of the 20th century. The first was the Herero genocide in German Southwest Africa, present-day Namibia. That's why you probably haven't heard of it. The perpetrators of the Armenian Genocide were the same ones who orchestrated the Holocaust just a few years later. They perfected the art of genocide. They used the tactics on the Armenians that they would later use on the Jews. Except this time, no one really cared. At the time, most of the world was focused on the war in Europe and didn't pay much attention to what was happening in the Middle East. Only 2 countries called out the Ottomans, Russia and the United States, but even then, they didn't do much to stop it. After the war, the Ottoman Empire was completely defeated. Their army was disarmed and their state was dissolved. Modern Turkey was established in its place. The new government quickly set about covering up the genocide. They destroyed evidence, arrested survivors, and made it illegal to even talk about what happened. For decades, the only way to learn about it was through secret memoirs and hidden documents. But why don't we call it a genocide? A genocidas is the deliberate killing of a group of people based on ethnicity or religion. The word was coined after the Holocaust to describe what happened to the Jews, but the Armenian killings meet the definition. It was systematic, intentional, and based on ethnicity. So why don't we call it a genocide? Some countries, especially those in the Middle East, are very sensitive about the term genocide. They view it as a political tool that can be used to control or manipulate people. They are afraid that if they call the Ottoman actions a genocide, it could lead to instability or violence. And it's not just the governments that are to blame. Many historians have also been reluctant to call it a genocide. In 1981, an American historian, George Bornoshan, estimated that around 1.5 million Armenians were killed. He also stated that the Turkish government bears the responsibility for this genocide. Despite this, he never used the word genocide. Instead, he referred to it as a mass killing or a massacre. Even today, less than a dozen countries officially recognize the Armenian Genocide. Most of them are in Europe and the Americas. But why should we care? What does it matter if we call it a genocide or not? It doesn't bring back the dead or undo the suffering. Well, it turns out that the effects of the genocide are still being felt today. Modern Turkey is still trying to come to terms with its past. Many deny that the genocide ever happened. Others argue that it wasn't as bad as the Holocaust. This denial has made it difficult for the two countries to improve relations. Armenia and Turkey don't even have diplomatic relations. They view each other with suspicion and hostility. Calling the genocide a genocide wouldn't solve all of these problems. It wouldn't bring the countries together or erase the pain of the past. But it would be a step in the right direction. It would be a way of acknowledging the suffering of millions and making sure it never happens again. Thank you for watching. I hope you learned something new. See you next time. The American Civil War was one of the most consequential conflicts in world history. But like many wars, it didn't have just one cause. So why did the Civil War start? Well, that depends on who you ask. But here are some possible answers. In a nutshell, the Civil War was caused by the expansion of slavery into Western territories, which created a lot of tension between slave states and free states. But that's just one possible answer to this question. In reality, the causes of the Civil War are complex and numerous. And before we get into them, a quick reminder to like and subscribe if you haven't already. When most people think about the causes of the Civil War, they often focus on slavery. And there is good reason for this. After all, the Confederacy specifically seceded over the issue of slavery, but focusing solely on slavery gives an incomplete picture of what caused the war. For example, prior to the Civil War, many people in the South believed in what was known as states' rights. This was the idea that states had the right to govern themselves, and that the federal government had limited authority over them. This way of thinking appealed to Southerners because it allowed them to maintain slavery even as the nation grew. You see, as the United States expanded westward, the question of whether slavery would be allowed in new territories became a major point of contention between the North and the South. The South wanted to expand slavery into these territories, while the North wanted to keep it out. This conflict over slavery led to a series of compromises, such as the Missouri Compromise and the Compromise of 1850, which temporarily eased tensions between the two sides. However, these compromises only postponed the inevitable. Meanwhile, other differences also grew between the North and the South. The two regions had different economic systems. The Northern economy was more industrial and commercial, while the Southern economy was primarily agricultural. This led to different interests and priorities between the two regions. Additionally, the North and South had different views on tariffs, internal improvements, and the role of the federal government in regulating the economy. These were issues that further divided the nation along geographic lines. Then there was the issue of slavery. While Southerners defended slavery as an institution that was necessary for their economic and social order, abolitionists in the North condemned it as a moral evil. This moral dimension to the slavery debate further inflamed passions and made compromise even more difficult. So while states' rights is often mentioned as a cause of the Civil War, it's important to remember that this was an issue on which Southerners had varying opinions. Many Southerners believed that states had the right to secede from the Union, while others argued that secession was illegal and unconstitutional. Ultimately, the issue of secession would be decided by the outcome of the war itself. Ultimately, all of these issues came to a head these issues came to a head with the election of Abraham Lincoln. In 1860, Lincoln, who was opposed to the expansion of slavery, won a majority of the electoral votes without carrying a single southern state. This demonstrated the growing divide between the two regions and convinced many Southerners that their way of life was under threat. As a result, 11 Southern states seceded from the Union and formed the Confederate States of America. When this happened, President Buchanan refused to recognize the Confederacy and argued that secession was legal. However, he also took no action to prevent it. Instead, he let the southern states secede and the Civil War began. Today, historians continue to debate the relative importance of these various causes. However, most agree that the issue of slavery was the most significant factor in causing the war, while states' rights and other issues played a role. It was ultimately the conflict over slavery that led to the secession crisis and the outbreak of war. So why did the Civil War start? Because the United States, or at least the parts of it that would become the Confederacy, broke apart over the issue of slavery. Thank you for watching. You may have heard of Martin Luther King Jr., you may have heard of his I Have a Dream speech, but have you heard of his daughter? Well, we're going to talk about her today, but first, let me tell you a little bit about him. He was a Baptist minister and activist who became the most visible spokesperson and leader of the civil rights movement from 1955 until his death in 1968. He advanced civil rights for African Americans through nonviolent resistance and civil disobedience, which he learned from Mahatma Gandhi. King was one of the most prominent leaders in the civil rights movement. He led marches, delivered speeches, met with government officials, and did everything he could to end racial segregation and discrimination in the U.S. His efforts resulted in major legislative victories, including the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. These laws outlawed discrimination based on race, color, religion, or national origin. They also made it illegal to deny someone the right to vote based on their race. One of his most famous speeches was his I Have a Dream speech. He spoke about his dream for the United States to be a better place for all people, regardless of race. He said that he dreamed of a time when his children would be judged not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. His speech was a call for America to live up to its ideals of freedom and equality for all. It was a powerful call for justice and an end to racism. The impact of his work is still felt today. The civil rights movement that he helped to lead changed the course of history and made America a better place for all Americans. His dream of a more perfect union is a dream worth fighting for, and his legacy continues to inspire people around the world to this day. He was born on January 15th, 1929, in Atlanta, Georgia. He was the son of Martin Luther King Sr. and Alberta Williams King. His father was a successful Baptist minister, and his mother was a civil rights activist. From an early age, he was involved in the church and the civil rights movement. As a teenager, he joined the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, or SC, which was an organization that worked to end racial segregation and discrimination in the South. He went to Morehouse College in Atlanta, where he studied theology. After graduating, he became a Baptist minister and began working with the SCLC in 1955. He became the pastor of a church in Montgomery, Alabama. That same year, he led the Montgomery bus boycott, which was a pivotal moment in the civil rights movement. The boycott began after Rosa Parks, an African-American woman, refused to give up her seat on a bus to a white man. King led the black community in a boycott of the bus system until the city agreed to desegregate its buses. This was the first major victory for the civil rights movement, and it put King on the national stage. Over the next decade, he led numerous other protests and demonstrations against segregation and discrimination. In 1963, he organized the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom, where he delivered his famous "I Have a Dream" speech. The speech was a call for an end to racism and a call for America to live up to its ideals of freedom and equality. It is considered one of the greatest speeches of the 20th century. In 1964, he was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for his work in the civil rights movement. For civil rights until his death in 1968. He was assassinated in Memphis, Tennessee, where he had been supporting a sanitation workers' strike. His death sparked riots and civil unrest across the country. His legacy, however, lives on. His work helped to change the course of history and make America a better place for all Americans. His dream of a more perfect union is a dream worth fighting for. And his daughter continues his work to this day. If you want to learn more about his daughter and what she's doing today, stay tuned for more information. You won't want to miss it. Until then, keep dreaming and keep working towards a better world. Thanks for watching. Today we're going to answer the question, who has the upper hand in military power, Iran or Israel? This is a question that has been asked many times before, but with the current events unfolding, it is more relevant than ever. Both Iran and Israel have a lot to offer when it comes to their military capabilities. But who really has the edge? Let's compare everything from missile systems to air defense, intelligence, and cyber warfare to find out. Missiles. Iran has one of the most extensive missile programs in the world. They have a wide range of missiles at their disposal, including short, medium, and long-range ballistic missiles, as well as cruise missiles. Iran's arsenal includes the Zelzal 1 and 2. Which are short-range ballistic missiles with a range of up to 200 kilometers. They also have the Hwasong 9 and 10, which are medium-range ballistic missiles with a range of up to 1,800 kilometers. And finally, they have the Shahab 3, which is a long-range ballistic missile with a range of up to 2,000 kilometers. In addition to these missiles, Iran also possesses the Qiyam-1, which is a short-range ballistic missile with a range of up to 1,000 kilometers and can be used to deliver chemical weapons, according to an open-source intelligence review published by the Washington Institute for Near East Policy. Since 2018, Iran has been developing a solid fuel version of the Shahab 3 known as the Khalij 1. The Khalij 1 has a range of over 2,000 kilometers and can be used to reach Israel on April 2022. Iran test-fired a new generation of medium-range ballistic missiles called the Zolianad 1. It had a range of 1,400 kilometers, which would allow it to reach anywhere in Israel. It is believed that Iran has around 3,000 ballistic missiles in its arsenal. On the other hand, has a smaller arsenal of missiles, but they are more advanced and accurate. Israel's arsenal includes the Jericho 1, 2, 3, which are intermediate range ballistic missiles with a range of up to 1,000 kilometers. They also have the David's Sling, which is a short-range ballistic missile defense system with a range of up to 70 kilometers. And finally, They have the Arrow, which is a long-range ballistic missile defense system designed to intercept incoming missiles before they reach their target. According to an open-source intelligence review published by the Washington Institute for Near East Policy, the Israeli Air Force recently began testing a new long-range attack missile called the Atlas III. The Atlas III has a range of 1,000 kilometers, which would allow it to strike any target in Iran. Israel is believed to have around 800 ballistic missiles in its arsenal. When it comes to missiles, both Iran and Israel have powerful arsenals. However, the edge goes to Israel due to the accuracy and range of their missiles. Air defense, both Iran and Israel have invested heavily in their air defense systems. Iran's air defense system is known as the Pachin air defense system, and it includes a variety of surface-to-air missiles such as the Sayad 1 and 2, the Talush 1 and 2, and the Mersid 3. The Pachin air defense system is designed to intercept incoming aircraft, ballistic missiles, and drones. Israel's air defense system is known as the Iron Dome, and it is considered to be one of the most advanced in the world. The Iron Dome system includes a variety of interceptors such as the Tamir missile, the Python missile, and the Stunner missile. The Iron Dome system is designed to intercept incoming rockets, artillery shells, and mortar. Both Iran and Israel have invested heavily in their air defense systems, and they are both very effective. However, the edge goes to Israel due to the advanced nature of its Iron Dome system. Intelligence. Both Iran and Israel have intelligence agencies that play a vital role in their military capabilities. Iran's intelligence agencies include the Islamic Revolutionary Guard, the Ministry of Intelligence, and the Foundation for the Protection of Values and Interests of the Islamic Revolution. These agencies are responsible for gathering intelligence both domestically and abroad. Israel's intelligence agencies include Mossad, the Shin Bet, and the Amen. These agencies are responsible for gathering intelligence that can be used to protect the state of Israel from external threats. Both Iran and Israel have robust intelligence agencies that gather intelligence to protect their national. However, the edge goes to the of its intelligence agencies in gathering and analyzing intelligence cyber warfare. Both Iran and Israel have the capability to conduct cyber warfare operations. Iran's cyber warfare capabilities are primarily focused on disrupting government websites and infrastructure. Israel's cyber warfare capabilities are more advanced and can be used to target both government and non-government entities. Both Iran and Israel have the capability to conduct cyber warfare operations. However, the edge goes to Israel due to the advanced nature of its cyber warfare capabilities. In conclusion, when it comes to military power, the balance of advantage lies with Israel. Although Iran has a larger arsenal of missiles, Israel's missiles are more advanced and accurate. Israel also has a more advanced air defense system, and its intelligence and cyber warfare capabilities are more robust. However, it is important to note that this is just an assessment based on publicly available information, and the actual military capabilities of these two countries may be different. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please like and share it with your friends. Do you think we missed anything? Do you have any suggestions for future videos? Leave them in the comments below. We appreciate your feedback and support. Today we ask, how powerful is Iran's Revolutionary Guard, and what exactly is the extent of its power?
orang ini orang dah kata, orang dah kata, orang kayak orang yang sasi, orang kayak orang yang sasi. Kami gaya ni dah sudah cinta mana dah ini. Tapi kami gaya ni dah cinta mana kayak orang dah sih kan.
ঠিক আছে
Kalau orang dah kata kita ni orang yang parah ini, apa yang sakit sistem dah kan siapa? Kalau kita parah yang berlaku, bukan ini, orang kayak orang ini bukan.
The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, otherwise known as the IRGC, is one of the most powerful organizations in Iran. It is deeply interwoven into almost every aspect of Iranian society, politics, and economy. Unlike your typical military force, the IRGC answers directly to Iran's supreme leader, making it the most powerful branch of Iran's military. Although it should be noted that the IRGC is not the only powerful military force in Iran. Iran also has a regular armed forces known as the IRGC, which also enjoys considerable autonomy and wields considerable hard power. But many argue that the Artesh takes orders from the IRGC, and thus the IRGC is the dominant branch. Here's a breakdown of how powerful the IRGC really is. Point 1. Absolute loyalty to the supreme leader. The IRGC was established after the 1979 Islamic Revolution. Its role is to